mile on, Billy came upon another discarded horse. 50 yards beyond that, the third. McNabb was the first to spot the tracks. 2 men scrambling into a thicket of bushes. "Oh, Buck!" Billy called out. "Cut it, Billy. This isn't a game. And they still got guns," Brewer replied. Billy ignored him. "Bucky, Bucky, Bucky! Are these your size 9s heading straight into the shrubs, or is that Baker's? Frank, you back there, pal?" "You sure it's Morton and Baker?" Brewer asked. "I'm certain, Dick," Billy said, loud enough for Morton and Baker to hear. "Come on out, Morton. Show yourself, Baker. We have warrants for your arrest." "You just gonna kill us?" came a voice. Billy smiled. "Didn't you hear, Frank? We're the law now." It wasn't of any comfort to Morton and Baker, but they had little choice. 3 guns came over the shrubs. Beaudry took a step forward, but Billy stopped him. "Buck, we both know you still got that pea-shooter on you, too." Sure enough, a tiny revolver, small enough to fit in a pocket, landed harmlessly in the dirt. "How do we know you won't kill us?" Baker asked. "Maybe we will, maybe we won't. But some things in life are certain. If you don't come out, you'll die for sure." Billy took out a book of matches and struck one, then set it against the base of the dry brush. A gust of wind killed the flame. "Ooh, did you get lucky there?" he laughed. "Quit it, Billy," Brewer said. He didn't like the glee in the kid's voice. Billy lit another match, and this time the brush caught. The fire spread, and thick black smoke rose into the night air. All right, Baker said. Then he skipped out, patting down his pants and boots to extinguish the flame at his cuffs. Buck slowly followed, glowering, his eyes locked on Billy. Billy raised his Colt. He placed his finger on the trigger. 5 pounds of pressure, 1 light squeeze to end Buck Morton's miserable fucking life. "Billy, we gave our word," Beaudry said. "He killed Mr. Tunstall, and he'll stand trial for it," Brewer replied. Brewer put his hand on the barrel of Billy's Colt and directed the gun toward the ground. "You gonna give some speech about how if I pull this trigger, I'm no different than Buck? What say you, Buck?" Billy asked their new prisoner. "We alike, you and me?" "I suppose maybe we are," Buck answered carefully. "You're not a murderer, Billy," Skurlock said. "And that's what this would be. Murder." Billy continued to stare at Morton, every ounce of Billy's body telling him to cut Buck down, just as Buck had done to Tunstall and countless other innocent people. A slight smirk came across Buck's face. "They don't know, do they, Billy?" "What don't we know?" Skurlock inquired. "Billy Bonney may not be a killer, but Henry Antrim sure as hell is." "Who the fuck is Antrim?" Beaudry asked. "Antrim's the one who shot Windy Cahill over in Arizona," said Brewer, the reality dawning on him. "Billy, are you Henry Antrim?" Billy focused on his hand. It wasn't shaking. On his breathing, steady and even, his palms dry as a bone. The only thing moving at all was his mind, seeping red with hatred for Morton. He could kill Buck and still have a full appetite come dinner time. And Buck knew it, too. Billy holstered his gun. "Yeah, Dick, I'm Henry Antrim. At least I used to be." The regulators loaded their 2 prisoners onto horses and started north up the Pecos River, headed back to Lincoln. Billy took it upon himself to be Buck's personal escort, riding behind him, the Colt never leaving Billy's hand. Billy was studying Buck Morton's and Frank Baker's demeanor. It made sense for Buck to not be on edge, Billy thought. That's just his way, stone-cold killer. But Baker was more high-strung, the type of guy who would startle and pull if a waiter dropped a pitcher. And here he was, after the emotion of their surrender had subsided, cool as a fall breeze. "Dick, it ever occur to you there might be a party waiting for us in Lincoln?" Billy asked. It had crossed Brewer's mind, and he'd been twisting himself in knots figuring out how to turn the prisoners over without facing mortal rebuttals from the Dolan faction in town. One time, me, Jesse, and the boys had this pissant tag-along we couldn't shake free. Followed us everywhere we went, playing the big shot, thinking he was tough 'cause he was riding in our trail dust. Little bastard worshipped Jesse like a hero. I swear to you, he'd have sucked milk out of Jesse's teat if he could have. And Jesse, he felt sorry for the scrawny, motherless cunt, so he let him stick around. Billy leaned forward on his horse as if in rapt attention. We stopped in La Mesilla for a night, Buck continued, and this young'un starts crying for his mommy, for his family, for his brother in Silver City. It got to be so much the women we were with started asking why we let a baby tag along. McCloskey bellowed in laughter. Baker let out a small chuckle but kept an eye on Billy. So the runt, feeling ashamed of how he comported himself, sneaks out in the middle of the night. But before he does, he helps himself to a horse in town. But it weren't any old horse. It belonged to Sheriff Barea. McCloskey whistled to show his enjoyment of the retelling. The other regulators were now paying attention as well. And Sheriff Barea, he was quite fond of this mare, for he had given it to his daughter on her 9th birthday, and his daughter was damn near devastated. "Donde está Blanquito? Donde está Blanquito?" She just kept repeating it over and over, so now the sheriff, he's all in a twist, because his little girl's in tears. Jesse wanted to let it be, but me, I got a sense of honor, and it weren't right. Someone had stolen that little girl's best friend. So he tracked the runt down, in the mountains. When we came up on him, he shit his britches. Right there in front of a dozen of us boys, he soiled himself like a helpless infant. Then what happened? McCloskey asked. We took the horse, stripped the little fucker of his wet clothes, and made him walk naked through Apache country. You didn't kill him? Nah, it would have been like shooting a puppy, almost too cruel. Billy adjusted himself in the saddle, aware Buck's and Baker's eyes were locked on him. I heard this story, Buck, but not how you tell it. I heard you were beating on a beautiful young filly and she tired of you. Maybe if you'd brought the oak and the sheets, she'd have put up with your shit, but you was flopping wet rope every night and just weren't worth the hassle. McCloskey, unaware of the rising ire between Billy and Buck, laughed again. And this young fella, what'd you call him? Pissant? Runt? Baby? He took up her defense, was the shoulder she leaned on, and he helped her escape your clutches. And that just riled you up so much you went to hunt him down, except when you got up to him, he gave you the slip. And now you're left to cock your own gun every night. Buck clenched his jaw and gripped the reins of his horse tightly. Baker had drifted closer to McCloskey, sandwiching the impartial rider between himself and Buck. Motherless cunt, Billy said, almost to himself. What? McCloskey asked, slowly realizing he was the only one smiling. Motherless cunt. That's what Buck called the young man, Billy replied. Frank Baker saw an opening. He reached over and pulled the revolver from McCloskey's side holster. Beaudry fired first, putting one in Baker's shoulder and knocking him to the dirt. Buck Morton grabbed McCloskey's rifle, holstered on the horse's side, but Billy was already on him, Colt raised, pointed square between Buck's eyes. You've gotten faster with your pull, Buck said, dropping the rifle. I do some things fast, some things nice and slow. Depends on the situation. That badge must feel constricting, Buck said, stopping you from unveiling your true self. All right, that's enough, Billy, said Brewer. We've got but 5 miles to Lincoln. What about him? Beaudry asked, gesturing to Frank Baker, who was writhing on the ground, holding his shoulder. We'll get him medical attention in town, Brewer said, hoping to calm the tension. Buck looked at Billy. You got me now, but right, Judge, right, D.A., I'll be seeing you real soon. As Billy went to holster his 6-shooter, Buck continued. Maybe it won't be you I'll come see. Maybe it'll be that slut Abigail. The regulators heard the shot before they realized what happened. Buck Morton looked confused, then toddled backward off his horse, blood seeping from the bullet hole between his eyes. Smoke from Billy's Colt wafted away in the wind. God damn it, yelled Brewer. Jesus, Billy, you shot Buck, stammered McCloskey. This ain't the way it was supposed to be. Why's that? Billy asked coldly. Why ain't this the way it's supposed to be? Because you're the law. You're supposed to bring them in so they can face justice. You think that's what happens in Lincoln? Billy scoffed. Justice prevails? You think Buck and Jesse would treat you any different if they were the law and you were the captive? Buck was my friend. Mama always said choose your friends carefully, Billy replied. Before McCloskey could respond, another shot echoed through Agua Negra Canyon. Billy turned to Frank Baker, who slacked limp, McCloskey's rifle at his fingertips. He went for it, Beaudry said. A little surprised himself, he had just extinguished Baker. "Oh, hell, Charlie," McCloskey said. "How are you going to explain this to the justice of the peace? To the judge?" "What's to explain?" Billy asked. "Buck and Baker stole your guns and opened up on us." "That's the same sort of load they told after they shot Tunstall," McCloskey replied. "No way to win if we have to play by different rules." "Win? This is about right and wrong, not some tally you got running in your head," McCloskey said. A wind blew through the canyon. Billy looked up at the clouds. The skies were darkening. A rain was coming. He locked eyes with Brewer, then McNabb. "I ain't gonna do it," McCloskey continued. "I'm going to the judge to tell him—" The rifle shot went in McCloskey's cheek and out the back of his head. He fell to the ground next to Buck and Baker. "Now there's no one to contradict the story," Duck said, his rifle still pointed at McCloskey's body, waiting for a twitch to indicate the job needed finishing. The twitch never came.